Welcome to Heaping Spoonful, a twice-monthly conversation with restaurateurs, chefs, growers, and others who have helped generate the legends associated with eateries across the Mid-South. The team at Petit and Keet is proud to sponsor this adventure with the goal of preserving the stories that have helped cultivate an amazing food scene across the Mid-South. So kick back and enjoy a Heaping Spoonful.
Hello, everybody out in podcast land. I'm your host, Kelly Bass, and I'm happy to welcome you to another episode of Heaping Spoonful, where I get a chance to visit with some of the key players on the Mid-South culinary scene. I am a recovering journalist. I have spent 18 years in the newspaper business, and I love getting to do these interviews. I was lucky enough to review restaurants for two Little Rock newspapers long before we had Yelp or TripAdvisor or any of those things were a thing. And I'm also a foodie by nature and by choice. Today on Heaping Spoonful, I'm visiting with Jim Keet and his sons Tommy and Jake, who as JTJ Restaurants operate 10 Taziki outlets, as well as Petit and Keet and Panini's and Company, and they've got more cool things on the way. So welcome, gentlemen.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
All
Great
right.
to be here.
Glad y'all are here. Well, as listeners know, Heaping Spoonful is a podcast where we visit with chefs and restaurateurs about their careers and what they've learned along the way. And in that context, there's no father-sons combination whose brains make more sense to pick than the three brains of the Keets that are sitting with me right here, right now. But, you know, when you start looking into particularly Jim Keet's life and career, restaurants are only part of the story. So we're going to start with you, the patriarch of the team. You have bios and things I've found from, the internet will tell everything. So you started off in the hotel business and were running a Holiday Inn, but when you were 25 years old or so?
Actually, 22.
22, man. And how did that happen?
Well, I actually started in the food business when I was 15 in a Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Yeah.
Worked in a lumberyard during the day and a Kentucky Fried Chicken at night. And then I worked my way through SMU. I think one of 10 people in the history of the school that actually worked their way through there. But,
exactly.
Worked at Steak and Ale and at Holiday Inns. And then I had an opportunity between my junior and senior year to go to Cincinnati and work up there in hotels in that area. They offered me a bonus, and I decided rather than going to law school or investment banking, which is what my training was in,
right.
In school, that I wanted to have a few dollars in my pocket. And so I took an opportunity, a little bonus to get into the hotel business and started working 95 hours a week. And then instead of saving money, my sweet wife and I of 48 years now, and I got married kind of unexpectedly. We didn't have to, by the way, but at any rate, we got married, and
I'm only 43.
Yeah, right. Okay,
that's right. So
there's do the math.
That's right. That's right. 5-year gestation period. But anyway, no, we started going all over the country and turning around Holiday Inns. I was fortunate enough to be the youngest innkeeper in the Holiday Inn system.
Wow. So you'd say turning them around, you mean you went into places that needed somebody to figure out what was going wrong and make it right?
Yes, I kind of had a history of that as a assistant innkeeper, food and beverage director, where I was lucky enough to have some successful restaurant turnarounds right out of college, and then got promoted to be a general manager, innkeeper, and had good success there. So they recognized somebody that would work 95 hours a week,
sure,
7 days a week.
And deliver results. That's what anybody's looking for.
Deliver results. So ended up going around the country and then going to corporate. I was hired there to put all the operational input into design and planning on new hotels and renovations worldwide when I was only 26.
Wow. And so, folks who've been around the Little Rock in Central Arkansas first would know you from your role with Wendy's here, which brought Wendy's to Arkansas, right? And how did you jump from Holiday Inn corporate and doing what sounds like a really fun and cool job to teaming up with Jerry Hammer and doing Wendy's in Arkansas?
It was very fortuitous. Jerry was looking for someone who had operational experience And I discovered after only a couple of days at corporate that I was too used to being out in the field making decisions every day.
Right.
And I couldn't understand when everybody was going home at 5 o'clock. That was just when I was getting
started
ready for my second shift. So at any rate, we got together and we literally struck a deal between Memphis and Little Rock in his car, and had a great partnership for 11 years. We built 25 restaurants together in the Wendy's brand, and then 2 in Sisters Chicken and Biscuits. So we had 27 restaurants.
I'd kind of forgotten about Sisters Chicken and Biscuits.
Well, regrettably, and I kid the boys all the time because some of the things we do right now with both Taziki's, Petit and Keet, Panini's and Company, and soon to be Cypress Social, which is our newest venture,
right.
They're very difficult. Everything is prepared fresh every day. We take a great amount of pride in delivering a delicious product that we prepare from scratch.
And that's what Sisters did as well?
That's what Sisters did as well. And so, we kind of lament the fact every time we go by a Chick-fil-A or a Slim Chickens or whatever, and they're around the building, and it's a very simple business model versus what we do at Taziki's and Petit and Keet, because everything's fresh.
Right.
And a much more difficult menu to execute with excellence, but I got the 2 greatest partners in the world who make it all happen.
Well, they've grown up in it, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit. And then, just a little on a tangent sideline, you got involved in politics, served in the Arkansas House of Representatives, were in the Arkansas Senate, and then were the Republican nominee for governor against, as I read, your friend Mike Beebe. So that's a whole other chapter, and I'm sure there's a political podcast that could probably spend an hour talking to you about those days. But I would hope and think, because there's really no answer but yes, that the legislature was a little more collaborative and cooperative in those days than maybe it is today.
Yeah, without question. Well, first of all, I was only the 8th Republican to be elected since Reconstruction to the House, and only the 6th to the Senate.
So you had to get along with Democrats because that's about what it was.
And most of the things that I authored, they were very nonpartisan in nature.
Yeah.
They were just good government bills that ranged everything from literacy to the strongest 2 strikes and you're out bill in the country. So kind of a wide range.
Yeah, but, very common sense.
But I got along with Mike Beebe and Morrill Harriman and all those guys in the Senate, and some great people. Stanley Russ was my mentor in the House. To the day he died, we call each other seatmates because we sat next to each other when I was in the House or in the Senate after getting to know him when I was in the House. So the whole idea at the time was just trying to do things that were common sense, good things for the state to move it forward and be more progressive, and it was a great honor to do that.
Yeah, well, I admire. We hear thank you for your service to all kinds of people, and I don't think often enough for people who are willing to do what you were doing, which is moderately thankless work. But again, that's a very diverse and different part of a career than being a restaurateur and growing restaurants like you have. And so, Tommy, you're besides being an executive and leadership role in your family restaurant business, you're an attorney. Went to law school. I know you use those skills in plenty of what you do. And then you also play a major role in your family's construction company, which appears to focus a lot on restaurant construction, although I know you all do things beyond restaurants. And then you were all founding member of the Hat Club, which is a totally cool thing because I've known a lot of those folks, and I believe in grassroots philanthropy, which means other than a big company writing a check, it means a bunch of guys who care about making the community a better place and helping people who are less fortunate at because there's 100+ folks in the Hat Club.
Yeah, it started in 2010, and it was 10 guys that basically were at a lake house together talking about how they would like to make the city a better place. And so within 2 weeks of that night, those original 10 reached out to about 4 guys each, and I was one of those. So I was one of the first 40 guys. Yeah. And we got a 501c3, and so after this is our 10th year coming up, which is pretty special, and we've raised right at over $500,000 that we've donated, and for the last 2 years, I've been the president of the Hat Club, and so we've grown from those 40 guys to, I think right now we've got about 180 guys.
That's fabulous.
And so it's
that's what every city needs a group like that. That's great.
Yeah.
And then Jake, of course, again, you guys are right smack dab in the middle of everything you're doing with your restaurant group and your construction company, but you're also a realtor, right? Is that something you actually pursue, or is that just kind of on paper?
That was largely just because my big brother has a legal background. So do most of the members of my family. And then my dad, helped write laws as a state senator. I was trying to basically just catch up on real estate law so that I could help read contracts as they came our way. But it has been immensely helpful for, my own life because, getting a commission back when you purchase a house is an amazing thing. And
well, yeah, and all of your restaurants are in buildings, and so the real estate is involved.
It's been helpful, but fun pursuit.
That's cool. So Jim, back to you. So we've talked about how your Wendy's opportunity came to be, and then you guys grew it. What was the first Wendy's that you all opened here? Where was it?
4600 Cantrell Road in North Little Rock.
Okay. Hold on.
Cantrell.
Excuse me, Camp Robinson Road.
Camp Robinson.
So I used to saying Cantrell with our Tazikis, and when we had
which
under
was your first
construction,
Tazikis,
but
right?
8200.
That's
Cantrell.
right.
Yeah, right.
That's right.
Coming soon,
That's right.
15,000 Cantrell Road.
Did you have any trepidation in just getting into something that at the time, obviously it was brand new to Arkansas, and it was still, I think Dave Thomas had founded it a few years earlier, but it wasn't a national force.
No, at the time there were 150 nationwide, and none in this area, and most of them were in the northern part of the country. And I came into contact with it in Memphis, and I literally was sitting outside of a Wendy's and taking car counts and doing calculations on how much I thought you could do per hour with that customer flow, and approached the folks in Memphis at the time, Billy Plyler and his partner, Charlie, and we started talking about it, and they say, we're not looking for a partner, but we have somebody we think you might want to meet. And so Jerry and I, struck a good partnership from day one, and I was fortunate enough to actually build 7 of them before Jerry was able to move here. Mm-hmm. But we had a great partnership. He was a wonderful man, very philanthropic, and he taught me from day one that you need to give something back to the community. And we did that. Yeah. And I've been on, I think, 21 boards or commissions.
Yeah. Well,
and now my sons have embraced that same philosophy. They're very much involved, both of them, and not just the Hat Club. And Jake is on Easter Seals, kind of a younger Easter Seals board, and a variety of other things. And they both give a lot of time and energy back to the community, and that's something I'm very proud of.
Well, I've only known you for not super long now, but I can tell they've also inherited or learned your work ethic, because the number of things you guys are involved in, again, is amazing. And that's fabulous. And as we talked earlier, you're not done yet for sure. So not that operating all those Wendy's wasn't a big job and building them and growing the whole franchise here, but it sounds like after I guess you all sold your Wendy's and you began working for a couple of fairly large, or at least, one at a time, restaurant chains that were based in Florida. Is that right?
Yes, I actually sold my interests to Jerry, and then not longer after that, I helped start an investment banking and mortgage banking company, and that led to politics. And then I was asked by a good friend of mine in the Wendy's business to join Maxey's of America, that we grew to a pretty nice size chain, and merged that or sold it to Rally's. And then
was Maxey's similar to Rally's?
It was similar. Really good food, double drive-through type concept, hamburger oriented primarily.
It was good food.
It was really good. I mean, it was all freshly ground every day, and took a lot of pride. I tell the boys all the time, and our staff, I still have as much pride thinking back being a good grill man at Wendy's and being able to serve a perfect cheeseburger. It means as much to me as Chateaubriand or, a wonderful South African lobster tail. You got to take pride in whatever you do in whatever segment you're in.
Right, and make the very best you can make.
That's right.
For sure.
And the boys do that every day at Taziki's, and so proud of them.
Right. And again, in reading all that you have done, I guess you were involved with another restaurant operation and then a hotel, and they all led to acquisitions, which is not an easy process, and certainly is its own animal of trying to package up and then the whole courtship and marriage part of getting those kind of deals done. I'm sure that was you already knew what you were doing, but I'm sure you learned a lot along that way too.
Yeah, I was fortunate. My background educationally was in finance. And so when it got time to make decisions about what the future of the companies might be, it was a lot of fun actually, but a lot of hard work to come up with the right proposition, sell the companies and or merge them. And whether it was in the hotel business, starting a brand with 3 other guys, and then I was the chairman of that company and merged it with a publicly traded company. The Barn Hills, we had about 2,800 employees in 8 states. And I was actually working with Stevens and GE Capital to buy the other investors out, and we got a bid that I took off. Yeah, I took off my acquisition cap and put on my sales cap very quickly on that one.
Yeah.
And then my son said, we would like to do something with you. And we started looking around, and I hopped in the plane, went to Birmingham, Alabama, again with this good friend of mine who had just bought 2/3 of this little company, and we liked what we saw, and
That's
they wanted
Taziki's,
us.
Right?
That's correct. They wanted us to help develop it, and we dove right in, and we've helped develop the company. And I later was asked to be the president and CEO of the overall company, but the boys and I we're building our 11th. That Tommy's in charge of our first ground-up prototypical site. Jake runs all of the operations here in Central Arkansas, plus does all of the IT-related stuff and the more sophisticated stuff that's above my head. And we're really proud of our partner, Brent Lenners, who has been our general manager at Petit and Keet, and will be our partner in Cypress Social when we open it.
Yeah, and we'll get around to talking about that one in a minute, because again, that one was something I didn't see coming either, but there's a lot of this. So, but seriously, when you had completed the execution of those deals and had, either merged or sold those companies, you had probably every right, though it's not apparently in your nature, to go, wow, I've had a great career. I think I'm going to sit on the beach a while and, think back on all the fabulous times. And then I guess that's when Tommy, I'm guessing it was Tommy, maybe it was, and said, I'd like to do something together with you.
It's kind of a funny story. I was working for Windstream at the time, and I was they were going through a large period of acquisition, and I was the labor attorney for Windstream, and which meant I guess I was head hatchet man. And so they were acquiring companies and then reducing synergies and up to 300 employees at a time. And we went to Texarkana and closed a call center there. And I called Dad afterwards and I said, man, I'm not doing this anymore.
I don't have the heart for this.
This is not, this is not what I want to do with my life. I don't really care. I'm financially making good money, but I'm not, it's just not worth it. It's not how I want to live. And
right.
And so Dad he had sold Barn Hills Buffet at the time, and he was playing golf at Kelly Plantation every day and just kind of starting to live a good life. And he said, well, I think I've played all the golf and gin I can handle for a while. And I was like, yeah. I mean, and Dad's version of mini retirement is only working 30 hours a week.
Sure.
And then I called. So Dad and I started really talking about it. What do we want to do together? And then it was perfect timing because at the same time Jake was graduating college. And so
Florida State, is that right?
Yep.
Go Knowles.
Yeah.
Oa.
Yeah.
And
yeah, it is perfect timing. And it's also, I mean, it's easy to say now after this many years and seeing the success, but I mean, for you to come upon a friend who had bought into the Taziki's brand. And of course, I read about the couple that founded that, went to Greece and had a great vacation and came back and said, let's make some gyros and let's,
Yeah, Keith Richards, he had what we consider to be a brilliant concept of how you would have replicable, great food that was made from scratch and done quickly. And so, I mean, I've looked at many brands. I've done, 150 something restaurants now, and it was just the simplicity of it, but fantastic food that's all fresh ingredients, and we cut our own meat, and we used to get whole legs of lamb in and butcher the whole thing into 5 different parts.
And people just would not expect that. They really would not expect that.
There was no fast casual in Little Rock at that time either. I mean, there was
of that
Chipotle, Panera, none of the big.
We're here
Anyway,
yet, right?
None of them were here yet, and so it was. We were sitting there, the three of us eating with Michael Bodner and Keith Richards, and sitting there, and it was just like, there is nothing like this in Little Rock at all. And it's kind of that aha moment where let's put it this way. That was December 28th, 2007. I went back to work the following Monday and put in my notice.
Yeah.
So it was, I gave a 3-month notice, of course, because I was
involved in a lot of projects, I'm sure.
right.
Yeah.
But
so the Taziki's that you all opened there on Cantrell across from Pavilion in the Park, what number in the whole Taziki's?
That was number 4.
Number 4. Were the other 3 all around Birmingham? Or?
They're all in Birmingham.
Yep.
And the interesting thing was that, Jake, as Tommy said, was just graduating from Florida State, but we were so committed to doing it well and doing it correctly. And, Tommy literally cut his salary in half. Jake had just graduated from Florida State.
He wasn't expecting to make a lot of money anyway.
Yeah.
That's cool.
He had a new wife.
And he didn't.
Baby on the way.
Yeah.
And he started at $30,000 a year.
Yeah.
Jake started at 45. I started at 0, which is what I was worth. But, we all worked really hard. And I want to tell one little story because I think it kind of says it all. And one night, Jake had left that day after working only about a 12-hour day. And Tommy and I were about ready to go. And we noticed we were doing our post-shift check, noticed that the walk-in cooler was higher than it should have been. And so we went in there, and the meats were about 50 degrees. And we like to keep things no higher than 42 degrees, usually, 34 to 38 degrees. So we're sitting there looking at each other, and we made a decision. I said, is it worth about $1,000 of meat that we're going to throw out to protect our reputation forever?
Yeah.
And we agreed that it was. We went back in the office, and Tommy says, I'm making half as much money as I used to. I'm working nights. I'm working weekends. I have no holidays, but I would not trade any of that to be able to work with you.
Oh, that's great. Yep. And you just threw away $1,000 worth of meat. But again, one bad gyros is not worth.
That's right.
That's right.
Well, that's just, and it's cool that because again, when certain restaurant concepts come here, people are like, oh yeah, I ate the one in Dallas, and I'm so glad they're now in Little Rock. But very few people here new Taziki's, that's for sure. So you're about 10 years older? Is that about right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I can do my math on the college graduation dates. Figuring nobody repeated grades a whole lot, so I think I can do that pretty well. Do your memories of your dad in the restaurant business, do they go all the way back to Wendy's or not?
Yeah, it's funny. We've got these old pictures of me. Dad had a special Wendy's uniform made for me. And this was back when they had the...
Put that on Facebook.
Yeah, right. Yeah, well, I think when the house got hit by the hurricane, I think we lost a lot of those pictures.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Sadly. But it was... what I remember is Dad worked a lot. Yeah. But if I had a baseball game, if I had something like that, he wasn't going to miss it. Yeah. And so that was the thing. He might go back to work afterwards, but he wasn't going to miss that. It was, the way Dad is driven is that if he was going to take a Saturday off, he was going to say, all right, we're going to clean the garage today. And it's like, why don't you relax, man? But that's how he's the Energizer Bunny, and he still is. I mean, just going and going. And so it's been such a, I have two mentors, and he is my everyday mentor. And then I also, and I've learned so much from him, and he has instilled work ethic in Jake and I since, I started working in a warehouse at 13, and then was mowing lawns by 14. And it was you're going to work. And I did. I love it.
So, Jake, you're just getting out of college, and I guess the discussions had been happening before you walked across and got your diploma that you were going to be coming on board and y'all were going to run this thing together.
Yeah, it was very exciting. I'm a English lit major. So
me too.
That is one of those when they offered me a job, that was very exciting, period. But also just the opportunity to come back to Little Rock. I lived in Florida at that point for about 5.5 years, and that was enough time away from sort of where I feel most centered.
Sure.
Little Rock, I've got a lot of great friends here and great relationships, and getting the entire family together in one spot, great opportunity to have.
Well, I think
have it all.
Well, it really, you can define the American dream a lot of different ways, but you guys are living it because you get to carry on the family legacy and do it all together. Yep. And I'd also think, again, as a guy who is not in the restaurant business, although I frequent them regularly, that once you said, hey, this Taziki's we have is working well, what should we do to open more? Well, you got a guy who's done it.
That was
done it at Wendy's, done it all over. So exactly how to the footprint or the blueprint for how to grow a restaurant chain.
So that's still invaluable. We still rely on Dad so much for advice. Even when we occasionally butt heads on how a certain thing should be done or whatever, there's still so much wisdom that we gain from him on a day by day, week by week basis. I come knock on his door. I'm like, how do I do this?
Sure. Well, I'm also sure that the guys who were, corporate Tazikis said, hey, look at this. We got a guy in our organization here who has done this, so let's make him the president of the chain and let's help grow it, and then he can back out and run his own Tazikis with his sons. Which
I still remember that phone call because Dad and I were working out of an apartment at the Bentley Apartments, and he was in one room and I was in the other, and we were just about to open our third store, the Conway location, and I heard Dad on a phone call, and he's and he walks in and he says, well, they've asked me to be the president. And I was like, about time. Why
would you not?
What are they waiting on? You're the best at this, and recognized as one of the best in the country. And so, and that for me was, it was a really cool moment. And man, that was a lot of driving at first, a lot of work, but you went, at that point, you went from 18 Tazikis to 50 in
60.
Or 60 in, 4 years.
I think I did 42. It was right at 60.
That's what I was thinking.
So I left, but we had another 18 under construction or development. So
yeah.
Yeah, it was
are these franchisee owned? Or are they still corporate out of Birmingham, or is it a combination?
A combination of the two. Like we own a little piece as an example of a joint venture with the parent company in Nashville.
Okay, all right.
9 stores there, but we just own a very small part of it. Mm-hmm. And I still own a little chunk of the parent company.
Right. And I'm sure becoming president of the overall company, you felt good about focusing on that growth because you knew you had the home fires were burning and these guys were taking care of what was going on.
Yeah, well, Tommy and Jake both during those days were working oftentimes 7 days a week and lots of hours and complete commitment, dedication, and focus on the business. And at the time, Tommy wasn't married. He was being chased by most of the single women in the town. And Jake was newly married with a new child, our miracle grandson, Holden.
That was 10 years today. They came home.
Oh, wow.
Today.
Oh, was it really?
Yep.
Wow. It's a beautiful story.
The great one.
So he came home. I'm sure I know where he came home from, but...
Children's.
Yeah, from Children's Hospital. And ironically, I'd been on that board for a number of years, and so it was kind of like a miracle.
Sure, and I have friends in similar situations. I mean, there's nothing like Children's Hospital. I mean,
Yeah.
No doubt.
you know, I operate a nonprofit and we do great work, but I'm like to say to my staff, we're never going to be Children's Hospital. We're never going to be the Arkansas Food Bank, but we're going to do our thing. So that's really cool. All right, so here again, one more time, y'all can go. Okay, we've got 10 Tazikis. You've had an amazing career. You guys are rolling. You're like, okay, now's when I'm going to the beach, but not so much. So. In 1975, you got into the Wendy's business, and in 1975, Jock and Suzanne's opened on top of what's now the Regents Building. Mm-hmm. And I was working at the Arkansas. Well, I wasn't in '85. By '81, I was in '75. By '81, I used to go eat lunch there because I couldn't afford dinner, and I really couldn't afford lunch, but I loved it. Fine dining right there, and of course, we're all greeted by Louis Petit, who is he Swiss? Or is he
Belgian.
French? Belgian.
Yeah, he's
okay.
from Belgium.
I knew he'd come here with a lot of people to open Jock and Suzanne's with Paul Bash and a bunch of other Denny Sayer and folks, and of course that's 2 or 3 podcasts about all the tentacles that have come out of Jock and Suzanne's. Mm-hmm. So you and Louis are friends, and so the story goes, y'all are having a glass of wine, and all of a sudden, up pops Petit and Keet, which besides rhyming is a totally cool place. So is that? I mean, I'm sure that oversimplifies the whole situation. But
No, not too much.
okay,
I was going to say, you
Pretty
nailed
much
it.
You kind of nailed it. Yeah. Well, the joke was that going back to my days in Wendy's, that I was working 95 hours a week so Jerry could go to Jacques and Suzanne's 4 nights a week.
Yeah.
We just kidding each other. Jerry worked very hard as well. That was just a joke. But I asked Louis over to our condo in Destin one night to have a glass of wine at 6:30. Mm-hmm. And he shows up with a bottle of Corton sur le Main, this beautiful white Burgundy that 4.5 bottles of wine later at about midnight, I said, and I'm not sure we had anything to eat at that point. I said, Louis, with your reputation in fine dining and with our reputation that we have locally from Wendy's to Taziki's, and my boys know so many people and they're well known and respected in their circles, we should start a restaurant called Petit and Keet. And Louis kind of puts his hand on his chin and he goes, "Why, Jim, I think that's a very good idea." And so, and literally another bottle of wine later that night, we had kind of struck a deal that I was still running Taziki's corporate at that point. But I said, my obligation is going to be up in about a year. And when that obligation was up, we started really looking in earnest, but we didn't want to just have another brand. We wanted to have it Petit and Keet, standalone entity. And when Savoy came available, there was history there because of Maison Louis
was in that building
3 decades earlier. And so we jumped on that and bought it. My boys like to say that they hate to hear the word, I have a cool idea, because it usually costs between $1,000 and $1 million over budget. But at any rate,
Never less than 5,000.
yeah. But at any rate, we wanted to do something really special, and the boys were excited about it, and we all, collaborated on it. And if we all hadn't agreed to 5 basic principles that what we wanted to do with it, we would have never struck the partnership, because it was up to the boys every bit as much as me and Louis. So it's been wonderful. And one of us, this is something that's kind of interesting. We'll be open 3 years on May 18th. So well over 2.5 years. And in 2.5 years, there have only been about 37 or 38 nights that either one of the boys or Louis or I have been there.
Yeah, and that's what it became known for immediately, was that you're going to see Petit and you're going to see Keet. At least one Keet. I'll tell you what, let's take a break right now, and we'll come back and talk more about Petit and Keet and the things you got in the works. Some I'm sure I don't even know about. So everybody, thanks for listening today on Heaping Spoonful. We're really enjoying the conversation with the Keet men, and we'll come right back in just a moment.
I hope you're enjoying this episode of Heaping Spoonful. We at Benny Keith Foods enjoy talking about the food scene almost as much as we enjoy providing the top quality ingredients that help restaurateurs and chefs across the Mid-South create their magic. Now let's dive even deeper into the culinary world with your host, Kelly Bass.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to Heaping Spoonful. We're having a great time today talking to Jim, Tommy, and Jake Keet, JTJ Restaurants. And we're talking about Petit and Keet, which, again, is in West Little Rock. Doesn't feel nearly as far west as it did when Maison Louis was there. And then, of course, it was Restaurant 1620 for years and years, and then 16 Savoy, and it's 1620 Savoy, and it's a great place. But since you opened, I mean, again, your stamp's on it, Louis' stamp's on it, your son's stamps are on it, but it's been acclaimed as one, I think. And, we now really have multiple polls, but I know the Democrat Gazette and Arkansas Times, I think it's been best restaurant in both of those polls. Yep. I think it was best new restaurant when it opened. It's got great crowds, and it's just, you don't want to call it fine dining, but I think I saw polished casual or something. And of course, there's all these terms we use, but it's just got a good vibe to it. I mean, it's comfortable. You don't feel like you have to be super dressed up, but if you got a suit on, you're totally fine too. So talk about, again, it was hatched over wine with Louis Petit, but did you all just you said something about 5 principles. That may be principles you use in everything that you do, but can you kind of talk about how you all came to the decisions that made Petit and Keet what it is?
Well, a lot of it was the time commitment, the financial commitment, the commitment to excellence and all that. But one of those 5 things was that one of us is going to be there every night, not just for a couple of weeks or during opening or whatever, but forever. And we haven't strayed from that. Now, we have other restaurants that are going to be opening that will change that somewhat, but the commitment from my sons and from Louis has been extraordinary, and me. But they are there. I get so many wonderful comments about my sons, and of course, Louis is a sideshow of his own.
Sure.
Oh my gosh.
He has people. People can't wait to if Louis and I are in the restaurant at the same time. People literally knock me out of the way to get to Louis to hug and kiss on him. So it's just a wonderful thing to be able to work with my sons and with Louis in that environment. And we have been very fortunate in winning the best restaurant 2 years running. The most recent one that came out, we were the best outdoor dining in the city, the best wine list, Wine Enthusiast magazine, which is one of the best publications nationally, recognized us as one of the best 100 restaurants serving wine in the country.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that was pretty spectacular.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, it is Little Rock, Arkansas, and in the great wine scheme of things. Congratulations. And again, for not just for making it successful, but for taking it on in the first place. That's amazing. And again, the listeners, you're hearing a theme here. All right, now we're done. Petit and Keet's up and running. So one question I want to ask you, Jim, is so you got a huge, and just in Arkansas, a huge history in fast food, a huge history in fast casual. Now you got a very almost 3-year, very successful project that we aren't going to call fine dining, but it's certainly not fast casual, and it's certainly not fast food. But I'm sure things you learned, as you said, you learned at Sisters, but things you learned at being a great maker or purveyor of a cheeseburger are the same things that make you successful today. Have we discussed what most of those principles are? Is there anything else that you could say that are kind of the threads that run through all of those kind of restaurants?
Well, the boys will say the same thing, really, and it's we never want to be second best. We always want to be best in class. And we're committed to excellence in everything that we do, and it doesn't make any difference whether it's the restaurant business or construction business, whatever it may be. We want to be the best, and we try to inspire all of our people to do that. So
we are the best at hiring and retaining great people,
and that's
exactly
so critical.
Yeah,
and hiring, training, and retaining. That is one thing that we do at a high level. And I mean, the first guy we ever hired for Taziki's, Brad Compton, now runs our 2 stores in Northwest Arkansas as our operating partner. And he's been with us for 11 years, literally the first person I ever hired.
Yeah.
We still have people at Taziki's. Our average staff member, if you walk into our Chenal store, which this is a true statement, over half of that crew is original hired from 8 years ago.
Yeah, and that's amazing in that business.
It just doesn't happen.
No, and now the reason you can feel good about what's happening in Northwest Arkansas is because of Brad Compton, right? I mean, you're like, we know we're in good hands. He's our guy. He's been our guy.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's gives you time to run off and do podcasts and stuff. It's just fabulous.
Hey, and that's the truth.
And so again, then we could say, okay, now we're just going to kick back and not kick back at all. We're going to work our butts off to maintain the level of quality and the level of success that we have at all our restaurants. And then Cock of the Walk. And again, as an old restaurant reviewer, I've been going to Cock of the Walk when that seemed in the middle of nowhere before Maumelle Boulevard became, construction material central and all the other things that have happened in Maumelle. And then I knew Brian when Brian had Cock of the Walk, and we'd go out there. And when I was at the Arkansas Gazette in the 80s, we'd go out there and eat and loved it. It was a totally different thing. And they'd flip the cornbread and they had the best slaw in the world. And then it, all good things or some good things come to an end. And Cock of the Walk came to an end. And that was a location that and I guess obviously at some point you said, I see an opportunity.
I will say, funny enough, I actually alerted Dad to that opportunity probably like 5 months before we did anything. I said, hey, Dad, I was just driving down Maumelle, taking my kid to this jump zone party.
Yeah.
And I saw that the old Cock of the Walk's for sale. I wonder what they're honestly asking for. And Dad goes, I don't know about that. So then like 5 months later, I guess at that point, did Jeff McKay reach out through Luke?
John McKay.
John McKay.
Yeah, John
Luke.
McKay.
Yeah.
And, Jake and I initially kind of went there and were kind of excited about it, just saying, what if?
Yeah.
And Tommy was even more reluctant than me initially. You have to say that Jake was kind of the driving force initially about looking at it. And so then we started saying, I'm the no.
Well, you're also you're the lawyer. You're supposed to be the no.
There has to be one. Jake is an enthusiastic yes.
Yeah.
Dad is an enthusiastic maybe. And I'm a pretty hard no until I get convinced. But I'm very convinced about this project now. It's incredible.
That's a big old place, isn't it?
Well, you would. I want to give you a personal tour, or we do, because you're not going to believe it. We're very blessed. We have another partner in KO Construction that's going to become Keto Gary Construction pretty soon when we do a merger. That's another story. But we are so blessed to have Luke O'Gary as our partner there. And when we started that project, initially it was to move our construction company over there. Mm-hmm. To have an off-premises catering venue so that we could do all of our catering for higher priced tickets, if you will, sure. As opposed to Taziki's where there's kind of a cap, and there are some things we can't do by virtue of our franchise agreement. So we're somewhat limited. So that we wanted to have that, and then we thought it would be a natural event center.
Sure. You want to have your class reunion, or you want to have your corporate meeting, or.
So initially,
we're just going
to kind of slap a coat of paint on it, redo the restrooms, clean up the outside a little bit.
Tommy is shaking his head.
Fix
like,
the roof.
You can't see it on the podcast, but my brother is visibly shaking his head right now.
That's not allowed in old buildings.
The problem is that when we start doing something, we want to do it correctly.
Sure.
And so we're about $1 million over budget on this.
Dad is 2 for 2 on being over $1 million. I
actually be very nice.
When we were doing our Conway store years ago, I said, Dad, you only get to go once a week because you're costing me $1,000 a day every time you walk in here. And he was like, 2,000.
Yeah.
I'm kind of a perfectionist, but you will not believe what we've done out there. It's literally have rebuilt it from the roof to the ground. Every piece of wood, every floor joist, every ceiling joist. We have now 28 LVLs supporting the roof, a brand new entrance. We've We're putting a well in so that we can maintain the lake level with a 24-foot fountain. We've reconstructed the entire inside, and now we're redoing the roof. So we've literally rebuilt the building from the inside out, and now we're redoing the roof. So
and it's gone from being an event center and a place for you to do catering to being a restaurant.
It's going to be a restaurant Tuesday through Saturday night, Sunday
Cypress
for
Social?
brunch. Cypress Social is the name, but we're also going to do events there. We have, as an example, one of the meeting rooms, it's going to be the bride's room. It has a separate concealed restroom that we put in that you can't even tell is going to be a restroom there because it's behind a knotty pine wall. That's a brand new, beautiful restroom that's just for the bride and for her bridesmaids, so they don't have to go to the restroom. So we've thought through literally what kind of meetings might be there, what kind of venue do we want it to be. So it's going to be available 7 days a week and most afternoons as long as we can open again that night. Right. And we actually have some people that have approached us about renting all 9,000 square feet that it now is, now that we have finished it. 9,000 square feet that's available with a two-level bar, 2 meeting rooms that may turn into 3, a double-sided deck, or I should say a 2-level deck that goes out off of one of the meeting rooms and dining spaces. It's going to be one of the prettiest, most unique destination restaurants in this part of the country.
Wow. And what's the food theme?
It's American cuisine, kind of low country, Louisiana influenced, but great values, great price points, excellent food. The same thing at Petit and Keet, but not at that high level. It's not going to be as a la minute French-inspired cuisine. Right. It's going to be more polished casual, truly polished casual, and not even getting into fine dining. But, great steaks, chops, some amazing seafood.
Well, let me tell you, as a former resident, 18 months, and a former business partner for 12 years in a project in Maumelle, we need a nice restaurant in Maumelle. I love Cheers, but between Cheers, there's pizza and there's a lot of Mexican food, and that'll be hot.
That's been a big driver for us. We've heard that from...
The market is ripe.
Yeah.
I mean, Maumelle flipped out when they opened an IHOP, and it was backed up. You had a 2-hour wait at an IHOP,
Well,
so...
We love Maumelle.
It's a great place.
It's a wonderful place. Mm-hmm. But the vision for the thing is... From the corner of Cock of the Walk Lane, which we're going to try to change the name of that, but anyway, Cock of the Walk Lane and Maumelle Boulevard, it's 5 minutes to Cantrell, 7 minutes to Rodney Parham, 9 minutes to Chenal, 12 minutes to Heritage Park, 19 minutes to Conway. So the goal is to really cater to the wonderful people in Maumelle, and we're excited about that, but we want this to be a regional restaurant where people come in from out of town and they look at one of the best, what are the best 5 restaurants in the city. We want to be 2 of those best 5 in that sector, not to mention the best Mediterranean cuisine in town.
Well, yeah.
And I think it would be worth also mentioning that this also came together because of our amazing relationship with Gary Mertens.
Oh, yeah.
Gary...
a designer of great renown in Little Rock.
Gary worked with Dad, and they were like an old married couple. Like the way that they bicker with each other about trying to get their things done. And
I'm going to bend you, Jim. I'm not going to break it, as Gary would say.
But watching them go back and forth over Petit and Keet, led to what Cypress Social is going to be. And so it's very
exciting. It's going to be a special.
Do we have, and I know these things can get pushed, do you have a projected opening date? Roughly?
We're hoping for mid-March, both on Tommy's project, the Taziki's out on Highway 10.
And that's going to be a different sort of looking to Taziki's than others? Or?
A little bit in that it's a ground up, so it's 3,700 square feet roughly. We're going to have a meeting room, a drive-through.
Okay.
We're going to have 3 dedicated app parking spaces.
So totally different look than what you got in Cantrell.
Yes, sir. Yeah, okay. It's not in line. It's going to be a beautiful store.
And then so a similar time frame for Cypress Social.
That's correct.
Yeah.
March will be very busy for us.
Plus, we're also another project that Tommy is leading is we're part of the franchise group, and we'll be building only the third Waldo's Chicken and Beer in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Wow. And Tommy, why don't you?
Yeah, it's a really great concept. It's basically chicken done two different ways in that we're gonna do incredible rotisserie chicken, and we're also gonna do some amazing fried chicken, and it's fun. Taziki's is paired with or a sister company to Fresh Hospitality that has about 20 different restaurant brands, and Waldo's Chicken and Beer actually takes a lot of influence from many of these brands. So it's the very similar tomato cucumber salad to Taziki's, or the cheddar biscuits from Jim and Nick's, or the similar influenced.
Yeah.
But taking a lot of really great brand ideas and putting them in the same under one roof. So it's
wow.
And we've got incredible partners in Tulsa, Mike Pierce and Dino, that just work so hard, and I spent a lot of time in Tulsa initially when we opened our Taziki's there at 71st and Yale, and this is going to be actually on the other side of that center, and so we're going to be able to have great synergy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And with a drive-through, which I wish we had a drive-through at the Taziki's there. But
I know.
So so Waldo's Chicken and Beer goes well for you in Tulsa. There's a chance we might see one of those in Arkansas someday.
Yes, sir.
There's a chance you're going to see about 20 of them.
Sweet, man. Well, I can only say, and you all have talked, and folks, everyone we've had on this podcast has had, because they're all successful and have had long careers. They talk about the people who surround them. The more you do, I hope you find even more great people to help you, because this is way more work than three guys can do, as you well know. I'm not saying you have to, you're going to get to sit on the couch and watch, but good people. And this is exciting stuff. And I love my city, I love my state, and I love these kind of new things coming here. So,
well, Petit and Keet really was one of the driving influences for us to do Cypress Social as a bar and grill, because we looked at the talent we had in our kitchen, and it was like we can find a place for these guys that are just incredible.
And that talent's training the talents is working right next to them too.
That's right.
That's what happens.
That's right.
Well, gentlemen,
Brent Lenners, who's our partner that I mentioned earlier, will be our partner in Cypress and also at Petit and Keet, deserves 99.9% of the credit. I mean, he has really worked his tail off. He kind of reminds me of myself when I was his age and the commitment my boys have made. He's a 7-day-a-week kind of guy, and he has surrounded himself. His wife is equally as committed to our company. And all the people, save two, that are going to be staffing Cypress are coming directly from Petit and Keet.
Wow.
Yep.
So we have an amazing staff, front of house staff, back of house staff that have been with us from day one at Petit and Keet. We have some people that are at Taziki's now, and another person who's been with us for 7 years that is going to be going to Cypress as part of the management team.
Wow.
We need to also mention our wonderful wives that work with us. Tommy's wife, Susanna, has been working with us now for over 2 years. Yeah. And then my bride Stephanie does all of our marketing. So
it's really a family
Mom
affair.
is the greatest greeter ever. The first week of Taziki's.
Mom also does. She reviews all of our legal documents, and because she's a reformed attorney, she's a lot better than I ever was.
Well, this
meticulous.
Is exciting stuff. I really appreciate your time. This story is fabulous, and it keeps going. And I'm super excited about Cypress Social, and you'll be seeing me around. It's been a little while since I've been to Petit Keet. I used to live downtown for 8 years. Live in Hillcrest. Don't cross the big 430 that often, but I know where I'm going. So, thank you all very much, and thanks to the listeners who've hung in for a great story that continues to get nothing but better with Jim, Tommy, and Jake Keet. All right, you all tune in soon. We'll have another episode up and running. We thank you so much for listening to Heaping Spoonful.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Heaping Spoonful. On behalf of all of us at Petit and Keet Foods, Mid-South Division, please know how much we love connecting you with the legends of the culinary scene and their unique stories. I look forward to the next time we can offer you another Heaping Spoonful.